George Balekji here with Zack Cox, now joining me in the PNC Bank Sports Corner. Zack, good to see you surviving through a few days in Vegas. It's kind of scary, your setting. Let's assume you're holed up in a hotel room. Nothing dangerous with you right now. But last night, we saw one of the worst finishes in the history of the NFL in a regular season game, if not the worst. The way the Patriots threw away the game. In a situation they should have knelt it, Ramondre Stevenson and Jacoby Myers decided to freelance and literally lateraled the game away. But take us into the locker room yesterday. What did you hear from Jacoby Myers, and what was the vibe amongst his teammates after that tough loss to the Raiders?
Yeah, that was as quiet of an NFL locker room as I've ever experienced. We walked into there probably 15 or so minutes after the game ended, and you couldn't hear a sound. There was no kind of talking, laughing, or even sort of the grumbling you'd expect after a loss. It was dead silent. And then we walked over to the corner of the locker room where Jacoby Myers was. He was still in full uniform, kind of hunched over his locker. It was clear that he recognized the kind of gravity of his mistake. And credit to him, I think he deserves a lot of respect for the way that he kind of handled the aftermath of all this. He accepted full responsibility. He basically just said he was trying to make a play and trying to be a hero. And it obviously ended up burning him and the Patriots. But yeah, I was in the building for the Miami Miracle a couple of years ago down in South Florida. And this even tops that, which I didn't think was possible.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers doubling down when asked to that he promised that there was no talk of laddering the football before the play. Even though Ramondre Stevenson started, he took full accountability right after. All right, so if the game didn't end the way it did, let's say the Patriots win or lose yesterday, the headline would have been Mac Jones' performance against the worst pass defense in the NFL, 13 for 31, 112 passing yards, looked erratic all afternoon long. What did you see from Mac that led to his struggles, Zach?
Yeah, it was bizarre, and it was really a regression from even what we saw last week against the Cardinals, because even though the Patriots passing game wasn't especially explosive in that game, obviously all the screens and all the short passes, I thought Mac Jones actually had a pretty good game against the Cardinals. This game was not that. This was the polar opposite of that. It was probably the worst game that I've seen Mac Jones play. You just look at the numbers. His completion percentage, worst of his career. Yards per attempt, worst of his career. Total passing yardage, the second worst of his career. The only game that was lower was the Buffalo Wind game last year when he only attempted 3 passes. He's the first quarterback in the NFL this season to attempt 30 or more passes in a game and average fewer than 4 yards per attempt. I mean, the stats kind of go on. And the fact that you mentioned it was against the NFL's worst pass defense, one of the NFL's worst secondaries. And it came in a game where the Patriots offensive line, I thought, actually held up pretty well. There were some instances where Mac Jones was hit in the second half. You can only hold off Max Crosby and Chandler Jones for so long, but he wasn't sacked in this game. According to PFF, only pressured on 7 of his dropbacks. So usually the kind of excuses that we've been able to make to explain some poor Mac Jones performances in the past, they weren't really there in this game. Yes, you can still quibble about some play calling and game management type stuff, but yeah, this was the worst game that I've seen Mac Jones play, and it came at a time where he seemed to be sort of ascending, which made it all the more worrisome for the Patriots.
I know we've been reading into it a bunch, but body language does matter to a certain point in these games. Mac's antics with the sideline communication errors continue to build up. We saw him have that false start. I was on Jonnu Smith, but he snapped the ball too early. Would have been a quarterback sneak for a touchdown. Do you see this adding up? And at a point where it seemed like it was Mac Jones expecting and showing off passion, it's kind of leaking into just everything coming to a standstill, everything hitting a wall with how he's conducting himself in these games?
Yeah, I think the position that the Patriots have put Mac Jones in this season certainly is a major contributing factor to the struggles that he's now having. But I don't think he's also blameless himself in this game. It's at the end of the day, you're a professional, you're an NFL player, you've got to play through the circumstances that you're put in. And he did not do a good job of that last night. As you mentioned, he missed several throws right before that false start. He had Jonnu Smith wide open in the end zone, missed him, threw the ball out of bounds. There were a couple other instances like that as well. It's something that we've talked about all season. It was really the biggest risk in a lot of people's eyes of this coaching setup that the Patriots transitioned to after Josh McDaniels left, with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge filling roles that they'd never filled in their coaching careers. You're saying, all right, worst case scenario, this doesn't work out, and you burn a key year of development for your most important player. That seems to be exactly what's happened. There's 3 games left. We'll see if Mac Jones and this Patriots offense can kind of pull themselves out of this and either make a playoff push or at least build some momentum to 2023. But yeah, it certainly has not been the step forward that I know a lot of us were anticipating from Mac Jones.
Yeah, Zach, those next 3 games you mentioned, against the Bengals at home, against the Dolphins at home, then on the road, finish off the season against the Bills. If the Patriots win out, they're in. If they lose any finish of those games, then percentages and prayers comes into the fold. But what should Patriot fans be rooting for? Do they want to get into the playoffs, or should they hope to sit the postseason at home, which would surely bring change from Robert Kraft on down to Bill Belichick and this coaching staff?
I think at the point where they're at, they should probably be rooting for this team to make the playoffs. I think that would be beneficial for Mac Jones and for some other of the young players on this Patriots offense, or Patriots team rather. Plus, they're in a situation where even if they miss the playoffs, they're probably going to end up with the 17th draft pick or something like that. It's not like the choices between make the playoffs or get a top 10 pick. They're going to be in that middle ground regardless. And I like to believe that Bill Belichick is savvy enough and smart enough to know that the situation that he constructed this season really put Mac Jones and a lot of their other players in a negative scenario, and that he'll be proactive and make those changes, even if the Patriots do make the playoffs and lose to the Chiefs or the Bills in the first round. I think a lot of it's probably going to depend on just what these final 3 games look like. If you see some really significant change in the way the Patriots are operating, both from an offensive success standpoint and just from a overall discipline standpoint. This has just been a Patriots team that makes a lot of dumb mistakes, a lot of unforced errors, a lot of pre-snap penalties. We've seen a lot of timeouts have to be used from some miscommunication issues. There was the blocked punt yesterday that has kind of been lost in the shuffle of all of the late game dramatics. But this is a Patriots team that continues to beat itself. And obviously that was basically the opposite of what the mantra of a Bill Belichick team had been for so long. So I do think that I don't think there's been any official decisions made on anything that the Patriots are going to do this offseason. It'll probably depend on these final 3 games. But at the end of the day, I still think where they are right now, it would be better to make the playoffs and at least have some forward momentum going into next year.
Chargers, the Jets, even the Jaguars, and the Dolphins, those are all teams to watch for the Patriots if they stumble across these final 3 games. All right, Zack Cox, I'm not going to jinx it, dude. Just get back from Vegas safe. Always good talking with you. Appreciate you taking the time, man.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, George. I'll see you soon.